103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Mubarakah Ibrahim, and this is Mornings with Mubarakah, welcoming in our first show of 2020. If you are just joining us, hopefully you are, because you tuned in just to see what we were talking about today on Mornings with Mubarakah. I want to remind you that you can find us on the New Haven Independent Facebook page, the My Fit Muslimah Facebook page. You can also follow the New Haven Independent on Periscope, YouTube, Stream Me, TuneIn Radio, all of those places to find the show when we are live every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. You can also, if you miss any of the past shows or you can't stick around for today's entire program, all shows are archived in the podcast on SoundCloud and on iTunes. Just look for New Haven Indie on both of those places. Welcome to 2020.
Yes.
Welcome to 2020.
Happy New Year. Welcome to 2020, indeed.
It is such I feel like this year is, I normally don't get excited about New Year's, I have to say. Mm-hmm. It's just like, okay, it's just another year. But I'm like, 2020 is like, I never imagined like what my life would be like. I thought we would actually be in like flying cars.
Flying cars. I've been saying this all week.
Where's our flying cars? You slipping, Elon. You're slipping.
Fly. What happens?
I swear that we would have robots for like
servants.
Why not still wash your dishes?
But we do have FaceTime, like the Jetsons. We can't quite beam ourselves up, but we got that Apple Watch. Is very.
That's true. I'm waiting for the hologram.
Waiting for that. That's next year.
Next year, the hologram. The other thing is like, I realized too, like maybe only about a week before the New Year's, is like, this is an entire new decade.
Yes.
Like we really turned into a 2-0.
Yes, we turned the decade, and then also on a celestial level, there were a lot of events that occurred in that final week. If people subscribe to it, even if they don't, those events still happened. An eclipse, a final full moon. Oh yes, the last week of the new year, and a new moon. Final new moon and an eclipse, a solar eclipse, the last week of the new year.
Wow.
So there's a lot of energetic things, people shifting their own energies and focusing in on, making New Year's resolutions, not just for the year, but looking for the decade, projecting into the future, into those flying cars that we promised.
And for sure, reflecting on what you accomplished in the last decade. It's funny because it really took me some time to, you know what? You're just starting to talk. I know, right? So, you know who I am because you're tuning in. But with me today,
I'm so excited to be here. So excited.
So, Shefau, I can't remember the middle name. Dabre-Rufus.
That's me.
So I want to welcome my guest, Shefau Dabre-Rufus, who is the founder and CEO of Zenzilla Yoga and Wellness. She offers community and school-based wellness education programs. She's also an educator. And you may remember Shefau from a show back in July of 2019, a decade ago.
Oh, yeah, back in the day.
Back in the day, a whole decade, previous decade. And we talked a little bit about her transition and finding and connecting her own purpose and passion in her new business. And so when I thought about talking about purpose and passion, you came up.
Thank you so much.
To my mind, because I'm like, what a better way than someone who has literally made this transition and a huge transition.
Yeah.
I always see online people are like, oh, and I left corporate for this and that. And I'm like, do people really leave their jobs to follow their passion?
I did. And it worked. In real life.
Yes. So today we are talking about as this decade has started and this new year has started, and we talk about transition and goals, and you see all over social media, all over the internet, it's a new decade and let's set goals, and this is the year and the decade. And I find that some people are like, yeah, share, like, but what is the for me? What is like, right? We want to be into what we see, and it sounds very motivational. And if you follow me at any point, you know, I think motivation is a load of crap because you can be motivated and not do nothing.
Absolutely.
You need action, not motivation. You need a plan, not motivation. So motivation is what the little feeling you get when you like a post, right? Action is when you've actually done something with that, and then that is what continues the wheel.
Absolutely.
And as we talk about coming into kind of like, how do we transfer that, what we see and what we want, into something for us personally.
In our lives. Day to day.
In our lives. So when we talk about finding kind of like purpose, what is your take on how does somebody who, you know, have no idea what direction, they know they're not happy where they are.
Yep.
How do they find that direction?
That is a great question. And I will start by going back to what you said about motivation and action. So a lot of times we look to be motivated and look at motivational quotes, but motivation is more of a feeling of being pushed to do something. You may be pushed to do something, and you go reluctantly and you're going in that direction, but it's different when you feel drawn to go in that direction, when you feel inspired versus being motivated. So what you want to do is look for inspiration, look for what it is inside of you that is going to cause you to go to that direction willingly and even run to that direction full steam ahead rather than feeling forced and feeling pushed.
How do you distinguish between that feeling though? So some people, you know, they do things and they go towards something out of habit.
Yep. Yeah, so a lot of times it can be out of habit, and then also it can be out of us really wanting to please other people. So looking to see the difference between motivation and inspiration, I ask myself, you know, who is this action really for? Is it really for me, for myself inside, or is it because I feel like by doing this, it will help my relationship with another person? So many of our goals are really rooted in our interactions with other people. So that can be the difference between being motivated versus being inspired. You certainly can be inspired to act and do things for others, but it takes a little bit more for it to come from you first and really fully come from you to do for others. We've all seen what it's like. Well, I can't speak for everyone. I have seen what it's like to do for others because I feel motivated. But then when the inspiration is not there and you're just acting,
kind of drains you.
It drains you. It drains you. So when you're inspired, you feel so motivated to act, or inspired to act rather than motivated. You're jumping out of bed rather than hitting that snooze button to do what inspires you. So I think knowing what it is that you like, identifying, is this goal for you, for myself, or is it for my interaction with another person?
You followed your inspiration and completely changed careers. What was that process like mentally? So one of the things that I see so often, particularly for women, is they want to follow their passion, but they feel this guilt of selfishness. They feel like, you know, if I do this, then my husband has to sacrifice, my kids have to sacrifice. What was that process like for you to be able to transition into something that you really felt passionate about, but, you know, it was for your own fulfillment? Yeah.
I had to, first of all, really acknowledge that I was doing it deliberately. It was different so I transitioned from being a classroom teacher or an educator in public and charter schools to being a wellness provider. And so I came from a background where my parents were both teachers, and I revered education, and all my life wanted to be a teacher. And so I had to shift out of the mindset of letting down this image I had created of myself as a girl, letting down the image I thought my parents held of me or the community had of me as a teacher, and this thing that I kind of built up in my own head, really. Because even if there was evidence of that persona coming from other people, it's still something that I created and still something that I gave attention to. So what I had to do was really go inward, and I did that through meditation. I did that every morning and got to really know myself. And when I got to know myself and I heard and observed my thoughts, that's when I started to notice what I really enjoyed, no matter what I was being told or no matter who was around. And what I didn't really enjoy, what I felt like I was kind of pushing myself to do. And, also by the time I got there, I was already at the point where I had given, and trying to pour from an empty cup. And I'm pouring, and then I throw the cup on the floor and it shattered. That's where I was. It might not have shattered. I put it back together. But I was at a point where, something had to give. Something had to change. And I felt like I tried everything. But I didn't try doing things for myself first. I had to deal with any potential guilt because, there was everything that you just said about the expectations and the extra burden you think you're placing on your family. At the time, my middle son was a student at the school where I was working when I was having some difficulty. So there was the pressure there. There's all kinds of guilt there. And just being a teacher itself comes with a lot of guilt because in our culture, there's this whole school marm mentality that still exists. So back in the day, when schools first started, the school teacher lived in the schoolhouse.
Really?
They lived there.
I didn't know that.
The school mom lived in the schoolhouse, and they were not allowed to be married or have children.
Really?
They had to devote themselves to their life as a teacher.
Here in America?
In the United States of America.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that. Wow.
And even in Connecticut, up until the 60s, if a teacher became pregnant, she had to resign by the time she was showing or 5 months along. This was as recent as the 60s. And I met a woman with this experience who became pregnant in the 60s, was teaching Connecticut and had to hide a pregnancy. So even though, the laws have changed, some of that mentality is there. Students are still shocked to see their teacher in the grocery store because they think, because we're there before they get there and we're there after they leave there, hey, you must live there. Sort of. They still have to and all that stuff. But yes, so I had to shift out of that. I had to let all of that go and really not care what those interactions meant to who I thought I was, if that makes sense.
Was that a gradual shift, or was it a kind of like an epiphany of today, no more?
It was gradual because I went reluctantly. I was in denial that I needed to change. I really thought that I could fix things the way they were. I really thought if I just tried harder, if I prayed harder, if I changed, I tried so many outside things, but I had to turn inward and listen to what was happening when my mind was quiet.
I know so many people can relate to that kind of like, let me just pray a little harder, or let me, I'm not finding my place because I'm not doing something right. Let me, and I think particularly for people who work for companies or organizations, that whole, I'm going to be a better employee. I'm going to, go the extra mile. And they do that in effort to, one, satisfy a boss, number two, thinking that it is that it's their fault that they aren't feeling fulfilled, when it's really what they're doing that's not fulfilling them.
Exactly. And so many of us fall into that. And then we end up acting these roles out based on this persona that we've created, that's based on what we think other people want from us. So I had to really disconnect from caring what other people wanted. Not that I didn't care. Of course I cared, but not more than I cared about what I wanted. And that was a shift. But I guess it was gradual. It was gradual because I had to really let go of the idea that was selfish in the first place. And it just took some work for me to do.
Did you grow up with kind of like this idea that your job was to give to others?
Yes. I'm the eldest of my siblings. I'm from a West African household. So I absolutely grew up with that mentality. And I still hold and honor that I do bear a responsibility. And I think that still comes through in the work that I do, but in a way that it doesn't feel like a motivation. It's an inspiration. It's different. It's very different, but the same.
So you still have the nurturing, but you're nurturing in a way that also fulfills you.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It feels really different. It's a subtle difference, but it's changed everything. I mean, it's like, when you use a protractor, when you just shift even 1 degree, you might not see the difference when you're at the point. But when you go out, the further out you go, the farther that distance is. And that's kind of where I'm at, a year later.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. But you're such a teacher. That's such a teacher analogy.
It is, right? I love it. It's my favorite part of SAT. It really is.
I love it. So as you are continuing this journey of kind of like really aligning yourself where you need to be, what did you find was like the most difficult of the transition?
What was the most difficult was really, really, really not caring what other people thought. Really.
Not just saying it.
Not just saying
not
it.
Not just sharing a meme.
Yeah, not sharing a meme, and not just knowing it in my head, but knowing it in my heart. And not having my feelings be hurt by people that I love, not understanding or accepting who I have come to accept. The version of myself that is my true self, but I was probably too afraid to present to the world. When I finally had the courage to do that, and people were like, what's going on with you? The hardest part was not being hurt by that. By recognizing that maybe they really cared a lot about the old me and they don't know what this new version is all about.
Wow.
So I just had to not take that so personally. That took some time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So when we talk about purpose in particular, do you think that purpose changes over a lifetime? How does your stage of life affect your purpose?
That is a really good question. How does your stage of life affect your purpose? I think for me, my stage of life, when I realized truly what my purpose was, the way it affected my purpose was I was able to draw from those experiences. So let me just go back a little bit. What I thought I was doing when I was an educator for all that time, I took what I loved. I loved being with children. I loved education. I loved teaching. And then I took what I was good at. So what I loved, I studied it, became really good at it, and that became my career. But what I was missing was my passion. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't something I was passionate about. And so once I realized that I was passionate about wellness in a way that means feeling good and doing good and being good, like for myself, and if that reflects and other people want that, that's great. So when I realized I became passionate about that, I incorporated that into what I was good at and what I studied. And then when I saw that in the classroom and I realized that I wanted to do this my way, that's when I was able to make that shift. So my stage in my life, I was able to look back at how I used my skills and what I had studied and then my passion to realize my purpose. So I had to study wellness. I didn't just say, hey, this is what I want to do and I'm cool and come. No, I got certified to teach yoga. I study it. I do self-study all the time. I practice every day. And, it's my life. And so my stage in my life affected my purpose because it wasn't just something that I did as an occupation. It was my life. My wellness is my practice. It's my It's what I do. And so it becomes so much easier for me to create programs, so much easier for me to explain what it is I do because it's something that I live every day, as you well know. I just think about when I was here 6 months ago, we were not in this amazing space. And even as I'm looking at you, you were beautiful then, absolutely. But like you have talked about the changes that you've made to your diet or the changes that you've made to your own practices. And I just see the manifestation of it. I see that. And so I said all that to say, our purpose in life, when we know it, it's one of those things that we know with that sixth sense. The five senses only help us understand the outside world. Our sixth sense help us understand what's inside. So when we know what our purpose is and we're not able to see it with our eyes, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it, it can be frustrating. And as we're attempting to describe it to people around us who can't see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it, they might think we're a little crazy. They might think we're daydreaming, or they may very well support our dream as well. But I mean, it can be a little frustrating, but then when you know that that is your purpose, without anyone having to tell you, when you hear that or see that with your own inner vision and no one can tell you that, then that keeps you inspired. That light keeps going to help guide your way. That's what it was for me. That's what it was for me.
If you are just tuning in, you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio, also streaming live on TuneIn Radio. This is Mornings with Mubarakah, and we are talking about connecting passion with purpose with Shefau Dabre-Rufus.
That's me, Shefau Dabre-Rufus.
Dabre. I apologize.
Tomato. The fact that you tried, I appreciate that.
And you know what I always feel super guilty because people mispronounce my name all the time.
Don't. See, you know how it is. At least people try.
Yes, that is true. When I go to Starbucks and they like completely butcher my name, I'm just like, thank you for not just saying latte. Right. So for sure. We talked a little bit on the phone, and we talked about your 4 areas of wellness and purpose. Yeah. Let's dive into that a little bit. What are those things that you think that people need to look for?
So what I practice in my own personal daily life, I do mindfulness activities, mindfulness, movement, and then meditation. So those are my 3 M's that I do to wellness. Mindfulness activities, I may do a breathing exercise. I may do whatever I'm doing. I am very focused on what that is. I'm focused on the physical sensation of what I'm doing. And I do this first thing in the morning.
Being present in your body.
Yes, being present in my body. So that's my mindful exercise. And that's in the morning. That's that 4th M. The movement is where I incorporate my yoga practice because that's what feels good to me. Maybe you might want to dance. Maybe you want to do Pilates. Maybe you want to do your morning workout at that time. But whatever it is, get the energy moving around, get to know what's happening inside of your body, and listen to your body if you feel any aches and pains, or if you notice that you're able to stretch a little bit farther or lift a little bit heavier weight. Notice that. Pay close attention to that. And then the last piece is the meditation. That's when I have, I've paid attention to being present in my physical body. I've moved around. Now I'm ready to just sit in some stillness and silence and listen to what's going on.
So question. People use mindfulness and meditation interchangeably. You don't.
I would say that meditation is a mindful practice, but not all mindfulness activities are meditation. Like every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square. Okay. Teacher jumped out.
Can't even keep that teacher.
But yes, it's that kind of thing. Like, so for instance, one mindfulness practice would be focusing on a breath, and I do a 4, 7, 8 count. So inhale for 4 counts, hold it for 7, and then exhale for 8. I like to add a little music to the background, so I'll do it to the beat of the music, or just the beat of the music in my head. And once I do that, what that does for me is bring my focus outside of what's on my to-do list, outside of whoever got on my nerves yesterday, outside of whatever, doesn't matter in the moment. And it just brings me to this present moment. I'm just focusing on my breathing. I'm noticing the coolness of the air as it enters my nostrils and how it's warm when it goes out. I notice how it creates a little bit of a sound. It's kind of like a wave. I notice the rise and the fall. Those minor, boring things really help me to drop into my physical body.
How long do you meditate for?
It depends. I would say I do it at least 10 minutes, at least.
How did you start?
I didn't start with 10 minutes. I started with guided meditation that I found on YouTube. Okay. That's how I started. My meditation practice is pretty recent. I'd say it's been about 2 years. Yoga is a different story. There's so much out there in yoga now versus when I started. But with meditation, I would do like a little guided meditation from YouTube that's just a few minutes. But then because I love thinking of imagery, I would just kind of visualize my own once I realized kind of the pattern that they were following. And then when I pursued my certificate in yoga, we certainly learned about different types of meditation and practiced them and had chances to learn them and teach them and learn how to do them with other students too.
So I ask that because I think that oftentimes when we think about people who meditate, we think of like, oh, they're just sitting there for like an hour, right? And some people do that.
There's certainly different levels, and you can look at a candle and just staring into that candle is meditation because you're bringing your awareness to that one thing. What meditation is not shutting your mind off. It really is observing your thoughts. And so again, keeping them in the present moment. If you notice that there are thoughts that are entering and it's based on the past or the future, I like to file it away. That's an exercise that I learned in one of my trainings. Just file it away. Does it go in the past file or does it go in the future file? If it's in the present file, just notice it. Don't judge it as positive or negative. Just notice the thought. And then the next thought. And then it could dissipate like clouds.
So how do you practice that just noticing and not reacting to it, right? Because sometimes you're like, okay, right now I'm really pissed at my kids. Like I can't, like every time I think about what they did, I just get so mad.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So how do you just, okay, this happened. I'm not mad. I'm not happy. This happened. How do you get yourself to that point?
So I start first of all by creating a space that's very comfortable. I make it smell nice. I have my pillow so that when I'm sitting, I'm not having to like shift around and readjust too much. I'm in a very comfortable position in a place that feels good. My door is closed where I know I won't be disturbed. Or I'm outside where I know I won't be disturbed. Outside's the best. And when those thoughts enter my mind, I go back to my breath. Anytime a thought enters my mind that I feel is distracting, I just say, all right, just focus on your breath. And that's just what it is for me. Or if I'm outside, I might hear a bird, or I might hear a car go by, or I might hear something that reminds me to stay in the present moment. Not in the past, not in the future, but the present moment.
I think the important thing that I notice about that is that if you hear a bird, if you hear a car, they're not distracting. There's they are what is going on in the present.
It's grounding. It's very grounding. And so, I don't get distracted by that during meditation. And when I teach meditation, I encourage students to just observe the sounds in the present moment and really resist the urge. I've been guilty of this. Resist the urge to replay old conversations. You can't remix them. It's not going to work. Yeah. Don't practice future conversations. They're not going to go like that anyway. I used to do that. Next time I see this person, they're not going to talk to me like that. This is what I should have said. I should have got them with this. Digging the twist. Doesn't matter. You can't do anything about that, and it stresses you out.
This is true.
So, like, I just realized.
And you're holding on to it for 2 weeks because you're going to see them for another 2 weeks.
And then you see them, and they're over. They ain't been thinking about you for 2 weeks. They've been meditating. They good. And then you see them, and you're like, and they don't care. So why do that to yourself?
This is very true.
Leave that in 2020. Leave imaginary in 2019. Leave imaginary conversations in 2019. And just focus on the present moment.
Wow. When you talk about mindfulness in the morning time, is that something that you recommend that people do very first thing?
It works for me. I think people have to find what works for them, but I highly recommend it because when we're just getting out of our sleep state, our brainwaves are still very receptive. And so it's extremely important to be mindful of the things that you take in. And so one of the points I wanted to make, a lot of folks make resolutions to drop a few pounds or change your diet. But when you change your diet, don't just think about the things that you eat. Think about everything you consume. What are the things that you're looking at? What are the things you're listening to? What is the energy that you surround yourself with in addition to the food that you're eating? Because that's certainly energy.
That's only one form of consumption.
It's just one form of consumption that manifests in your physical body. The things you hear can manifest in your physical body. You can look at something and it can give you a stomachache by making you feel disgusted. So it's like, do things that are pleasing. And then you're setting up yourself to feel better in your own space. And then setting up your mind to default to more positive thinking versus worry or regret.
I was speaking to a client the other day and we were talking about environmental issues, and it led to the conversation about how the humans that are around you is a part of your environment.
Absolutely.
We talk about environmental issues and we talk about things that we need to do to save the earth, to recycle, to
stop pollution.
Stop pollution.
Right, your energy.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. How
Yes.
it's not just the physical trash or recyclables, that it really is, the people that are around you, the environment that you're in, the way that, the space in which you surround yourself in, all
it's
of that.
It's the people you follow on social media.
Absolutely. Yes.
Who's on your timeline?
That's true.
And it's also, one thing I don't like to tell people what to do, but what has helped me tremendously also is not touching my phone before my feet hit the floor. I mean, that sounds so simple, but that was one change I made a few years ago that really helped.
The interesting thing is that, with about 2 iPhone iterations ago, they have a sleep app on the phone. And people were curious as to, they were like, it's just my phone. How does iPhone know when I am sleeping? And in response to that, they said, because 85% of people, the first thing that they do in the morning is pick up their phone. And so they can tell when you put your phone down and when you pick it up. And that is actually an estimation of how long you've been sleeping. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, I understand. I used to have a Fitbit watch, and with the Fitbit watch, they have the same thing, but it goes by your movement. So that's a little bit more, okay, that you were definitely, right?
But that tells a lot. When they know how many pickups.
They know.
I do monitor screen time for myself and my family, and Apple told us we were down 17% from last week. So being aware of that. Think of, and then another point I wanted to make, this year, this decade, and forever, think of where you're bringing your attention. Who gets your attention? What gets your attention? Because that's also a part of diet as well. It's not just what you're bringing in, it's what you're putting out. So think of where your awareness goes, where your time goes.
I had a business coach who once said, I don't need you to tell me where your priorities are. Show me your schedule.
Wow. Yeah.
He said, show me your schedule. Right? That was like, so you can't say, oh, my family is everything. My family is the most important thing. But Monday through Friday, all you're doing is working and doing all kind of other things. And but Saturday from 12 to 2, I'm with my kids.
No.
Like, that doesn't make your family a priority. And I think that a lot of times we are not conscious of how important what our time says about us and how important that is, where you're spending your time, how you are prioritizing where you're spending your time. When you say, I don't have time for things, it's generally you have not made it a priority.
Absolutely. And people say all the time they don't have time for meditation or time for exercise. Well, every day you wake up, if you do it first thing in the morning, you get it done.
This is true.
Even if it's just a few minutes. Even if that means just waking up a little bit earlier, it's for you, you know? So why not do that?
Yeah. I that's how I became an early riser. When my kids were younger, I would have to wake up. My husband had to go to work, and I didn't have nobody watch the kids while I exercised. So I started exercising really early in the morning while the husband and the kids were still sleeping, so that I could get it in. And that's how I'm still an early riser.
Yeah, and it just changed everything for you, and it helps other people too.
It helps you become if it helps you fill your cup in the morning and become a better parent, become a better, whatever hat that you have to wear during the day, you wear it with much more confidence, much more energy, much more focus, because you filled your cup in the morning.
Absolutely.
That makes it really, really important. So as we are going into a new decade, do you think that people, as they go into this new decade, what are some of the ways that they can transition in a way that can help them live a little bit more of their purpose? Even if they're not ready to make the big jump, right? So how do people begin that transition?
I think subtle changes, or this could be a major change, is just thinking of your self-talk. Because nobody talks to you more than you talk to yourself. So just making the effort to have positive self-talk, and even in journaling, maybe give that a try. And in your journaling, using positive words. Like, I challenge myself to only use positive words. Even if I'm retelling a situation, I will use positive words as I'm telling that story. So it makes you shift your perspective, but it's a part of that diet. You don't want to intake any negativity, but you don't want to bring it back out either. So it's just positive self-talk. And then let's extend that. Let's not share these memes where we're laughing at people and making fun of people. Let's give positive talk to other people too. Let's help other people with their resolutions and not insert any doubt and any clinging on to the old version of themselves that we knew. Let's support each other by supporting ourselves and being positive. And I don't want to be corny, but it feels good. I mean, sometimes people say, well, it feels good to laugh at other people too, but really? Like, really? Deep down inside?
You got a little soul searching to do.
Yeah. And I think deep down, it doesn't. You know? And so give yourself some positive self-talk every day, as much as you can. Look in the mirror, look in your eyes, and just really see what is in there and fall in love with the person there. And make sure that what you're doing is for your own best interest and really for your loving yourself. A lot of times people talk about self-love and self-care without really knowing who they are. So get to know who you are.
Self-care becomes very shallow. Like, hey, I went and got my nails done. So this is self-care. Snap, post.
Right. It takes so much more than that. It's so much more than that. Like, it is, what is it that you enjoy independent of your interaction with other people? I used to be into the nails too. I'm not going to lie. I used to be very into the nails. But I was also very into the compliments I would get. I was very into that. They were very colorful, and I might do it tomorrow. Who knows? I mean, today, this is where I'm at. But now I do it for myself. Before, there was a time where I wouldn't have my nails short because, oh my goodness, I thought that they had to look as a... No. It's about what I really want for myself. It's so much more practical and functional. So I like this deep down. So it's what you like, what you care about when no one's watching, when nobody will know what your answer is.
That is one of, I have, for myself personally, one of the ways that I have really tried to find and stay connected to doing things that really bring me joy is, as you know, I'm a social media person. I love Facebook. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg. But I challenge myself to do things that I don't post. Right? So a lot of times people they say, oh, you post all the time, If you were actually a fly on my wall, I don't post all the time. I do things like, for example, if I go to a friend's house for dinner, my phone stays in my pocketbook, right? And it's so funny because we were actually at a friend's house a couple of weeks ago, and my husband was like, "Oh, show them this, this, and this," and I was like, my phone is like all the way over there. Right. And so it really does challenge you. And it doesn't even have to be, that's a part of kind of like being present with the people you love. Yes. But to me, it's even, sometimes it's littler things that, okay, I'm actually going to go to the spa and everybody doesn't have to know that I'm at the spa, right? This is something for me to fill my cup. And I think that in a social media society, little things like that can really help you reconnect to who you are. Can I do this and not tell everybody, not worry about how many likes that I'm getting, how many shares that I'm getting, that people are going to say, "Oh yeah, girl, self-care there, you're doing you," right? Can I do me without you knowing I'm doing me?
That is a really good question that a lot of us should ask ourselves. It really is. Can I do me without people knowing that I am? It really is. I feel like so much of what we do is based on how it affects other people or what we think other people will think of it. And so we got to just unplug from that. When we're with each other, let's really be with each other and not have our phone with us. When we're with our children, let's not record everything.
Right.
Let's be with them.
Let's leave the putting kids' discipline on social media in 2019.
Because that's actually child abuse, but that's a different conversation.
That's a pet peeve of mine. Like, you don't have to tell everybody everything that your kid did.
Give your kid a George Jefferson haircut because they mouthed off at the teacher.
Bruh.
You ain't got to do all that. So let's be more present. Let's make sure that we're mindful in our interaction. When we're talking to someone, let's really be there with them and have that conversation with them. When we're eating our food, let's not post a picture of everything. Let's just enjoy the food. You can look at it, take a picture with your mind. Look at the beautiful colors that you've arranged. When you take that first bite, let it stay there for a little while. Feel the textures, feel the different flavors.
I used to, I didn't used to, I still do, I'll be honest. I would snap a picture of my food before I eat it, and I have my youngest son, who is sort of kind of like anti-social media. When he got to the point where when my food was served at a restaurant when we were together, he would reach over and mess it up with his fork. That's a good one. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Like, that is good. I like the sense of humor. And I'm like, really? Oh, wow. That is great. So I had to kind of like, when I'm with him, I do not take a picture of him. And now, even though he doesn't do it anymore, I just have to, I'm like, okay, forget it. To be present. Like, I'm not going to take a picture of the food, which is kind of funny. So, as we knew that this conversation was going to go super quickly.
Oh my goodness, wow.
So, tell us where you are, where people can find you in New Haven, how we can follow you on social media.
Yes.
Getting some positivity on your timeline.
Thank you very much. Yes, so my business is Zenzilla Yoga and Wellness. On Facebook, I am Zenzilla Yoga and Wellness. Instagram, Zenzilla Yoga. And my website is zenzillayoga.com. I teach community yoga classes on Sundays at noon at One Village Healing, located at 216 Crown Street. Also on Thursdays from 6 to 7, I have Trap Yoga classes, which is an affinity healing space for Black women and girls. I also do school-based programs throughout New Haven and in Hampton, and after-school programs as well. So in addition to that, I also offer professional development for educators and folks working with children to help get in touch with yourself so that you know who you are before giving to these impressionable, vulnerable young folks that we serve.
So those are all the places that you can find Shefau and be in her positive energy space and follow her on social media so that you can have some positive energy in your timeline, because we know you're not going to completely get rid of social media. So you want to incorporate some, consume positivity.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Any final words to our listeners as to things that they can incorporate right now in order to bring more passion and purpose to their life?
Yeah, things that you can incorporate. I can't say enough. Get to know yourself. Sit down quietly with yourself. I want to clear up the thing I said earlier about praying hard enough and how that didn't help me in my time. I am not saying that prayer doesn't work, but what I'm saying is meditation is the balance. Prayer is when you're asking God, when you're praising Him, but then your meditation is when you're quiet and you just hear what's being said to you. So I can't stress enough how important that is. Once you listen to that, that can certainly guide you and inspire you to continue on your own path.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It was an awesome time having a conversation with you.
I appreciate you.
Thank you for tuning in, and you have been listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Mubarakah, and until next week, be a voice and not an echo.